Yehuda, I say you're a good boy, but you just don't listen.
That's not true, Yehoshua. I do listen, and it's you who's the little boy.
How very dare you. Here, hang on. Here comes Peter and Thomas.
Doubting, Thomas. It's very much like a wee brown jobby. See it? Very much like a wee brown jobby sitting in that puddle over there. If you're the Messiah, you can bring it back to life.
It wasn't a life to begin with. A bit like my own, Thomas.
It's a wee brown jobby sitting in a wee puddle. If you're the Messiah, you can turn it into a bird and make it fly away.
Peter, Kohai, who would you say was the little boy between me and Yehuda? That's easy, Messiah. I would say that Yehuda is a little boy, but you act like a little boy because you don't understand that some little boys never grow up. Okay, alright, I want you back here in an hour, alright? Where I'm gonna turn that shit into a little bird.
Hallelujah! A shit into a bird, I'll be back for that.
Kohai, I'll be back for that too. See you in an hour. Okay guys, thanks very much. See you in about an hour.
Told you.
And with that, Yehoshua went straight into the forest, where he was a dab hand with all the plants and different types of things you got in that particular area, mainly Mary Jane, which is why he was so loving, and for other reasons too. So suffice to say, instead of going to get food and come back in an hour, instead he went into the forest to find a specific type of plant he knows that when you put it over someone's face, it knocks them out for a good time and they seem dead. So off he went into the forest, where normally he'd be a lumberjack dragging his trees through the bazaar to his stepfather's carpentry shop. And so the plan was this: Yehoshua, having harnessed that flower, he then tried to catch a little bird, which he did quite easily, because if it's a fly or a bird, all you have to do is go really, really, really slowly. Close your hands in really, really slowly, and then you've got them. And that works if you get up a bit closer than what I did. Saving time. I know your time's precious. And so's mine. Anyway, the point is that, so he caught the bird, and then he rubbed the flower's petals on the bird's beak for its nasal passages, and it was out like a light. He then carried the bird back to the bazaar with a little puddle with a wee brown jobby was in it, and he picked the muck up and smothered the little bird in it and disguised it in the puddle, just in time for Kohai.
The little brown jobby.
Peter and Thomas returned, just in the nick of time. Yehoshua stood over the little bird that they saw as just a lump of mud, and all he did was, and the bird shot out of the puddle, leaving everybody stunned, even Thomas the disbeliever.
What trickery is this, Yehoshua?
No trickery, just miracles. I'm a Messiah, so sue me.
I was a wee brown jobby. I just seen a wee brown jobby fly. I just seen a wee brown jobby fly out of a puddle. You are the Messiah.
I told you so, Thomas. Now fuck off.
Very well, thanks very much. It was nice knowing you.
You don't have to fuck off permanently.
Alright.
Do I fuck off, Yehoshua? No, everybody doesn't need to fuck off. Just as you were. But now that you've seen me perform yet another miracle, who do you say, Peter, is the little boy? Kohai. Well, it would have to be Yehuda. But I still say to you, Yehoshua, you're missing some development in your own maturity, that you can't see Yehuda for what he is. Fair enough. And with that, they all went their separate ways. except for Yehuda. Yehoshua, can I ask you a favor? So what's new? My cousin is going to be stoned to death today. Oh, I had no idea. Could you save her? If you can save her, it means you definitely are the Messiah. How many times are we going over this? You're not, you are the Messiah pish. I promise you, Yehoshua, if you rescue her, I'll believe it without question from here on in. All right, give me an hour to prepare. And with that, Yehoshua went to the area where people normally get stoned to death for adultery. Oh, that wasn't much of a rift. There was that. So anyway, he went to this place where Miriam is there. The first thing he notices about her is her beard. And basically, she just didn't give a fuck anymore. She was a prostitute and an adulteress, and she enjoyed sex. However, she more enjoyed the ins and outs and machinations and dramas of it. However, she wasn't without her good side. So it was her swearing at the crowd that brought her to Yehoshua's attention. And the next thing that was drawn to his attention was a huge menhir rock that was split in two, just far enough apart for him to squeeze through or escape through, as he knew the mob mentality in advance. So, the mob were about to stone Miriam Magdalene to death. And Yehoshua jumped in and said, "Let he who is without sin cast the first stone." And every single person with a stone in their hand dropped them. 'Twas then Marie Magdalene saw it as her excuse to flee the scene of the crime. "Get to fuck! Get to fuck!" she said as she made her gallant, graceful exit. Knowing what would be coming next, Yehoshua readied himself to run. And as predictably happened, basically they all picked their rocks up again and walked towards him, at which juncture he fled through the crack in the menhirs and didn't stop running till he was in his father's carpentry shop, where he stayed until he got his next bright idea. Loaves and fishes. How could he summon 5,000 loaves and fishes? Well, it's quite easy actually. He went to a fisherman's dock and saw the guy sitting in the dock and said to him, "What do you do to catch more fish? I'm not interested in fishing as a sport. I want to catch lots of fish." And the guy said to him, "Sweet corn." He looked at his foot. And then he went, "Right, I got you. Sow the sea with sweet corn and all the fish will come." And the guy who was asking advised him to do so. So as luck would have it, he knew a guy who kept chickens. And there was always sweet corn stacked up. And so he bought the sweet corn, then went to the sea, and next to a buoy, he sowed the sea with sweet corn to cheat. So then he went to meet Peter, Andrew and Johannan and basically said to them, "Guys, we need to catch 1,000 fish. I've asked as many women as I can if they can bake me some bread. And so far I've got 24 people who are going to make bread. If you can get 24 each, we've got loads of loaves to go with the fishes. Then what we can do is we can cook up the fish and hand out the bread, and I can give a lecture." Kohai, Yehoshua, basically what you're saying is you can help us catch 1,000 fish. At least, Peter. Then in that case, what are we waiting for? And with that, they all set out to sea, where Yehoshua, before he'd met up with them, had sowed the seed with this sweet corn, and the fish were flocking to it. So they barely needed to put their nets into the water that far. And they got around about 1,000 fish and another 500 because they were feeling greedy. And so, because they promised, they gave Yehoshua the better part of 1,000 fish, as they roughly counted it, and all went on their duties to find women who would bake some bread. And so came the Sermon on the Mount, drawn by the promise of free food, fish and loaves, and a decent lecture, humorous lecture ideally, enthralling lecture. They were open to that arena. And they all sat down, waited for Yehoshua to appear, and appear he did. Hoo-ha! Welcome, everybody, to my Sermon on the Mount. Some of you believe me to be the Messiah. You're not wrong. I am the Messiah. You all are sinners. I'm from above, you're from below. You need to follow me to stop sinning. I'm going to reduce the 200 plus commandments to 10. 10. Even you can keep 10 commandments.
What are the 10 commandments?
Thou shalt not kill, and thou shalt not use a false god. There's only one divinity, and everything that's good comes from it, and everything that's bad is shed by it. Like calls to like.
How do I know I'm going to go to heaven?
Well, you know if you've sinned or not. If you have sinned, atone and make amends for those sins. And in time, you'll be able to return to divinity within your soul.
So is the soul like a spaceship?
That's very well put, sir. The soul is like a spaceship, but if you sell it, then you plummet into hell when you're dead without it.
Quit all the bullshit and give us the fish and the beer.
Beer? It was bread. Ah, Yehuda.
What is it, Yehoshua?
Oh, I didn't know you were there. You printed out the flyers. Oops. Okay, let us pray. If you're a sinner, stop being an evil cunt.
What? What did you just say?
If you're a sinner, stop being an evil asshole. That covers both sexes.
Everybody, let's eat.
And with that, a swarm of people, mainly from the front of the procession, came down towards where the fish were being fed to them, fried and with available breads, but no beer.
Why? This has been an absolutely brilliant speech. It was short, and that's what counts.
Yeah, I was going to make it 2.5 hours long, but most people have the concentration of a fucking spider.
And as the crowd munch on the free feast, Yehoshua pisses off to go and visit Miriam Magdalene.
Miriam?
Who is it?
It's Yehoshua, the man that saved your life today.
Hold on. Come on in.
Wow, you've got a lovely place here, Miriam.
All bought and paid for by fanny work.
Oh, I see. Thanks for saving my life. It was my pleasure. Yehuda actually asked me if I would save your life for him, as I'm a better motivational speaker. Although there's about 60 guys who want to smash my head in with your rocks. It saves me from being smashed by their rocks, sexually or physically, either way. Okay. Well, I just want to make sure you're okay. You mean you don't want your hole? I didn't say that, but now you've got me in two minds. Can I come in? I come on in further. So why did those people want to stone you, Miriam? Well, because most of them have had sex with me and owed me money, and other ones were upset that I'd told the truth about them behind their backs to their wives. Oh, I see. And can I ask, why do you have a beard and a moustache? Well, it's a long story, but basically what happened was I was sitting with some of my prostitute friends. Yeah? And we asked each other what would have to be wrong with us in order for a man to say no to sex. Oh, I see. And you grew the beard? And the moustache. Yeah, well, what did your comrades do for their experiment? Social experiment? Well, one of them invited a guy in who didn't know she's got a false leg. So she unscrewed her false leg and said, "Do you still want to fuck?" I take it the guy said yeah. Yeah, he just said it'll be easier to get in. And when he was taking his trousers down, she unscrewed her false arm. Wow. And he still wanted to have sex with her until she took out her false eye. And then he fucked off. I'm sorry to hear that, Miriam. So she went to the window and saw him running down the street, and she shouted after him, "Do you not want your hole?" And he said, "Yeah, chuck it down." Quite cruel and unusual. Have you ever been to a whorehouse, Yehoshua? Let me tell you this, Miriam. I went to a whorehouse once. Never again. What happened? Well, I went up to the front desk and I said, "I want the best lay you can possibly give me. I've never been in a whorehouse before and I don't want to be in one ever again." So, who did they wheel out? Well, I got past those in a flash. And when I'd knocked back the first couple of interesting whores, the girl behind the counter said, "Twisted melons are good to chew, just like crippled women are good to screw." Yeah, what a motto. So, the third offering was of a woman who took up half the size of a fucking room, surrounded in cheesecakes. Did you slap a wave and climb in? No, there was nothing like that for me. I'd just eaten. However, the girl behind the desk said, "I know you'll love this big Bertha we've got on the top floor who takes up the full fucking room. But you have to tie a plank to your ass or you'll get sucked in." So I grabbed the plank and I walked up the stairs, squeezed the door open, and there she was, Big Bertha in all her glory. I tied the plank to my waist and she just said, "Belt in." So I started to screw her, Miriam, and she said, "That's not enough." So I started to screw her, Miriam, and she shouted, "That's no enough." So I stuck my fist in as well as my dick, and I could feel I was barely touching the sides. And she said, Stick a foot in. You're getting nowhere fast. So I took her advice and I put my foot in. So I was booting away and punching away and fucking away at the same time. This gigantic fucking wavy bitch. Until she said, stick your other foot in. And if you can, fit your head down there too. Fuck me. Literally. Quite literally. However, I'm banging down there with all my fucking might until I hear a creaking sound and the plank strapped to my ass snaps in half and I go flying into this fucking whore's vagina. Bouncing off walls, down tunnels, weird looking deposits. Oh, it took about 5 minutes before I could stand still. Fuck me. Fuck me. However, I was drawn to the sound of a man crying. And when I went up to see who it was, a man turned round to me with all hope lost in his eyes. And he pointed to the street signs and said, every time there's a fanny fart, these point the wrong way. And so I had to leave him to guess his way out, as I'd have to guess my way out too. But I promised, if I found the way out, I'd come back for him. What happened then? Then I travelled what seemed like miles until I heard more crying, a different type of crying. And there was a soldier sitting on a lump of fat, crying his eyes out. What was his problem? I said to him, I believe these signs are all pointing the wrong way round. And he said, not this one. Oh, you beauty, this one points out. So is there light at the end of that tunnel that's not in front of an oncoming fucking train?
Aye, basically. Yeah, that's the way out.
Okay, I'll see you out then. Okay?
Okay. But if on your way out you happen to see a horse and chariot, give us a shout.
Oh, that never happened. Oh, but I'll tell you one that did happen, right? It's my friend with the false eye again. I'm intrigued. She took up work on the street, so word had spread too far and wide about her, and so she got off on the ones who don't know who they're picking up. And she said this guy was walking past, and she said to him, you want the fuck of your life? If only women said that more often. Well, he said no, and said he'd had every type of sex like yourself, and so it'd have to be amazing. Oh, yeah, I know how that feels. She said, don't you worry, this will be the best sex you've ever had in your entire fucking life. And he said, go on then. What's so different about you? And she said, you can fuck me in my eye hole. And he said,
Blimey, well that is a first. Well, why not? I think I'll give it a go.
and then he starts banging away at her eye socket. Her ocular cavity is full of nothing but cock. I'm struggling with this one, Miriam. I'm struggling. It's okay, it didn't last long. And before she knew it, he'd shot his whack all over the inside of her brain, which then started making shortcuts. So she leaned over and shook the spunk out of her eye hole. Just what they should teach you in primary 1. Well, basically, when she dried her eye off, he said to her, that was absolutely sensational. You were absolutely right. Can I see you again? And she said, yeah, I'll keep an eye out for you. You win. You win. You win. No, you win, Yehoshua. What you did for me today was brilliant, exceptional and moral. And look, you've not even asked for your whole as payment. Yeah, I think I chose the right path. Well, as a reward, what I'm going to give you is priceless.
Well, I'm all ears.
Yehuda is your sworn enemy. And he didn't send you down to save me. He sent you down to be stoned to death instead, as he knew you'd try and save me.
So what you're telling me is, Yehuda knew in advance and wanted the blood to be on somebody else's hands for my murder.
Basically, yeah. Because Yehuda wants to be you. And he can't be you until you're dead.
Makes perfect sense when you put it to me that way, Miriam.
You have a different mentality, Yehoshua. You are from above. Most people are from below, and they can't understand what you understand because of your moral fibre, your reasoning, your compassion, your empathy, and the fact that your mother has abused you your whole life, so you have poor boundary control.
You mean awareness?
That too. Here's a test for you. If I was going to slap you across the mouth and I hit my hand off the table before I hit you across the face, what would your reaction be?
Well, before you finished that sentence, I already thought of my mother. She's called Miriam, too. I see exactly what you're saying. I empathize with people even when they're attacking me or trying to kill me. I make up excuses because I'm projecting what I'm like into their far more limited brain and psychology.
Aye, that's it in a nutshell. Here's the thing, Yehoshua. Everything everybody does is a deliberate choice. Yeah? You keep making allowances when there's no excuse whatsoever at all. Just shout to them, get to fuck, and have no more to do with them.
Okay, that's great advice. Miriam, I believe there's been a revolution in my thought processes about Yehuda and my mama.
Thanks again, Yehoshua. I hope you survive. Amen.
And with that, Yehoshua, filled with this new breakthrough in his thinking, tracked down the apostles and basically told them what he discovered about Yehuda and informed them that there's no way they could con him anymore. He wouldn't make excuses for them anymore. When they were acting like an idiot, it was a deliberate choice. And this revolutionised his thinking, especially towards his mother, who was very, very abusive, and she was a megalomaniac. And megalomaniacs peddle a pity play because they do think you should pity them. However, they peddle the pity play because behind it, they're up to no good, you know. Enter stage right, a man called Josephus of Arimathea, not to be confused with Yehoshua's stepfather, Josephus. No, this man was quite the opposite. He was a paedophile, and he was in the ruling paedophile ring of the Pharisees, who'd infiltrated Canaan, now known as Palestine, and managed to dig up as many paedophiles as they could in Canaan to work as their extensions, to take over their politics, their media, and then carry out the most barbaric of satanic rituals. involving the Holocaust of children, which means, Holocaust means put a baby into an oven or a child into an oven, and you offer it up to the Baphomet, or whatever his name is, bathroom mat. And to conclude, every country the Pharisees visited, they were kicked out again because they wouldn't stop torturing children and drinking their blood and so on and so forth. Things that are hard to believe still go on to this very day. Now, the thing was with Josephus of Arimathea, he'd had an epiphany, quite like the epiphany that Saul was later to have. And so, although he'd stopped having sex with children and stopped murdering, he still hung out with all those people still involved in necrophilia, cannibalism, you name it, anything that's disgusting and evil. They pride themselves gleefully on wallowing in it. So basically, Josephus had to let Yehoshua know there was now a new bill out for his death, because Yehuda had said to them after the stoning failed that Yehoshua was going around saying he was the only son of God, which Yehoshua didn't say. He said we're all the sons and daughters of divinity. You know, some choose divinity, some choose hell, or others for their own reasons, another circuit in purgatory where we are now. So Josephus bided his time and had his ear to the ground for when this arrest was going to take place. However, Yehoshua had other ideas and needed to go out to the desert to come to terms with everything Miriam Magdalene had told him. Well, here I am near an oasis where I can be alone with my thoughts and come to terms with my mother being a megalomaniacal psychopath who basically used my depth of compassion as an excuse to de-stress and get off on abusing me. It'll take a while to also consider Yehuda wants to be me as long as I'm dead. So Yehoshua sat down by the oasis and just waited until he felt better, understanding what was pitted against him, which was unbelievable, until you know it for long enough and you can see it transparently for what it truly is. However, he was soon to be accompanied by Josephus of Arimathea. Oy vey! Where did you come from? I'm just here, the bearer of good news. Who are you? I'm Josephus of Arimathea. What do you want? I don't want anything. Well, maybe to earn my soul back. I see. Is there anything I could do for you that would help me get my soul back? It depends on what you've done, old man. Oy vey. Well, let's just say I've done everything. Then you better start making amends and you might come back as a piranha. Well, there must be some way you can intercede on my behalf. I can put a good word in for you when I get up there myself. That'd be good. What can I give you for that? Peace. Before that. What you got? Well, I've got riches beyond your imagination. Fuck that. Oh, I've got, well, I've already covered that, haven't I? Because it covers silk, it covers gold, it covers, What about Bumbalerium?
Bumbalerium?
Yes, Bumbalerium. It's when you have enough women whom you're paying to bend over and stick their backside in the air as they're kneeling down.
Oh, I see. And the horizon just becomes a row of bums. Bumbalerium.
Yes, I can arrange that for you permanently.
Wait a minute.
Oy vey.
I've reduced 200 commandments to 10 commandments, and you still manage to contravene one of only 10 left.
Which one?
Thou shalt not covet thy neighbour's ass.
Oy vey.
On second thoughts, though, I mean, we could still run down there and fuck one of those cows.
No. Why don't we walk down and fuck them all?
Again, get ye behind me, Satan. No, I'll never, ever enter your bum landscape.
Okay, that's fine. I'll keep you in mind. But before I go, I have to tell you, Yehuda has planned to kill you, but I have other plans.
How many fucking ways does this little prick want to kill me? What am I, an asshole over here or something?
It's okay. I've got it all worked out. All you have to do is get to the Garden of Gethsemane tomorrow night and walk up to Yehuda and kiss him
Where?
on the cheek.
He's never off it. So, I kiss him, and I presume Roman guards will pounce and carry him away.
Yes. And basically, we're giving him 30 silver in a bag. And the Romans will drop it off with you. They'll think you are Yehuda because you've kissed Yehuda, and you will deny, and your other apostles will deny, and he'll be led away and crucified.
You make it sound so fun.
Well, I've also got your funeral planned.
Okay?
Yehuda will be crucified, but we will take him, instead of taking him into the tomb, we'll drop his body off a cliff with a rope attached to a branch that will break off the tree. So he falls down the cliff edge, bangs his face and his body off all the outcrops of rock until he hits the bottom of the cliff. So when he's discovered, he just seems as though he's had a crisis of conscience, which he doesn't have, and will leave the 30 pieces of silver at the foot of the tree. Meanwhile, we'll get a really lovely, tall boy, and we'll give him the same thing you gave a bird recently. And that will knock him out so he doesn't squirm or act out, and he gets put into your tomb instead, so that when we go to roll the stone away, a small boy appears, or rather a tall boy, and the Romans will shit themselves and run.
By fuck, you've put a lot of thinking into this, Josephus.
Oy vey. And with that, the stage was set. Yehoshua went back into Jerusalem, biding his time until the Garden of Gethsemane get together. And so before he had his last supper, he met up with Peter. And Peter had just come out of the hospital as he'd hurt his foot. And he was eager to tell Yehoshua all about what had happened to him.
Kohai, you'll never believe what happened to me in the hospital, Yehoshua.
Fill me in, Peter.
I was in hospital and basically in a ward, and there was 3 other guys there. And the guy directly in front of me was an African man. And so I eventually asked him what he was in for. And he said to me to have 2 holes pierced through the top of his lip.
Altitude sickness?
No, it was so he could see where he was going when he was whistling.
Oh, blimey. What about the other guy?
Well, there's 2 other guys. One of them was Asian. I think the other one was also Asian. But the one who was Asian at the top left, I said to the black guy, "What's this guy in for?" He said, "Well, he ate cat food." So I said, "So, food poisoning then?" And he said, "No, he hurt his neck licking his arse."
Oy vey. And what about the other Asian guy?
Well, I asked about him as well, and he said he'd gone to a wedding where he'd eaten a slice of the cake without asking.
So they gave him a good kicking.
No, he got food poisoning.
Alright, I see.
Yes, they'd made the cake out of shite to keep the flies off the happy couple.
Fuck going to that hospital.
And with that, Yehoshua invited Peter, subsequently Andrew, Johanan, and Yehuda to a Last Supper. And unsurprisingly, the hyper-competitive Yehuda, who wanted to be Yehoshua, could be relied upon to reach for the last roll only when Yehoshua was reaching for the bread roll. And by this time, in the background, people who hadn't even gone to see the Sermon on the Mount were pretending they had been. They pretending that so much so that Yehoshua was being credited with feeding 5,000 people with loaves and fishes, which isn't true. However, nobody wanted to say that missed it. And so, even when Yehoshua said to Yehuda, "Yehuda, I'm inviting you to my last supper. And even at my last supper, you will try and take the last crust of bread out of my hand before I can claim it as my own. I'm not gonna be a bread thief or nothing. What do you mean your last supper? Because I don't want to hang out with you anymore." "Okay, I'm still coming." "Okay, as long as you tell the truth once in your fucking life." Yehuda, "I always tell the truth, Yehoshua." "That's not true. And I've seen you get upset hundreds, if not thousands of fucking times when I tell you the truth about the way you're going on, because I used to make the mistake of thinking you were a high-functioning idiot. That covered you for what you were deliberately doing, which was trying to psychologically abuse me and behind the scenes set me up when that failed." "That's not true." "Yehuda, you cannot bear to hear my words because you are of your father, the devil. And your weak surrender to his lusts means you're simply a repeat of your father's evil and primitive desires. He was a murderer from the beginning and dare not stand in the truth because there is no truth in him. When he lied, he spoke only out of his own character, for he is a liar and the father of liars. But because I tell the truth, Yehuda, you say you don't believe me. The reason why you cannot bear this is because you are of your father, the devil." "I'm still coming to supper, right?" "Oy vey." Meanwhile, another guy called Saul was doing the rounds. Saul was a typical Pharisee, megalomaniacal paedophile who murdered people for pleasure, stole willy-nilly, had sex with children, was a necrophiliac, you name it. And he was on his way to Damascus when he was struck by
a bolt of lightning, which rewired his psychology and gave him a vision, as he would often refer to it as being. It was a vision of God.
All right, Saul.
All right, God.
You're a fucking bastard, you. An evil fucking bastard.
That's right.
You've got 1 second to change your ways.
Okay.
Right. What I want you to do now, you stupid cunt, is meet up with Yehoshua of Nazareth.
Yehoshua of Nazareth.
And what I want you to do is copy him. There is a murderer already copying him. But he's a murderer. He's a cunt.
He's a cunt.
What I want you to do is have the privilege of seeing both of them at the exact same time.
I see.
So you get to see someone being as good as it gets and someone being as bad as it gets. Although he's not as bad as you fucking cunt.
I didn't believe God would speak to me this way. However, I'm glad. I will go and find this great man and this despicable fellow.
Hurry up, I've got tons to do. Come on, shift your fucking arse.
And with that, Saul changed his name to Paul and studied Yehoshua from that moment on to the day he died. And one of the most impressive things that he ever said was in a letter to the Romans. Paul said about paraphiliacs, who are people who are sex craved and all have their fetishes, but they're essentially all the same. They're predominantly sex addicts, and there's a slippery slope. You go down all the way to nepophiliacs at the very bottom. And Saul, who better to tell the truth about megalomaniacs than a megalomaniac themselves? And what he put in writing to the Romans was about paraphiliacs, i.e. paedophiles, you name it, necrophiliacs, they're all the same. He wrote, although they know the truth, they neither glorified nor gave thanks towards divinity. Thus their thinking became so futile that their foolish hearts were subsequently darkened. Although they claimed to be wise, they became fools, having exchanged the glory of immortal divinity instead for graven images made to look like a mortal human being, and even birds and animals and reptiles. Therefore, the evil addicts were soon given over to the most sinful desires of their microscopic hearts, to sexual impurity for the degrading of their bodies with one another. They long since they exchanged the truth for a lie, and worshipped and served things they had created rather than the Creator. So, because of this, losing divinity gave them over to the most shameful of lusts. Even their women exchanged natural sexual relations for unnatural ones. In the same way, the men also abandoned natural relations with women and were instead inflamed with lust for one another. Men committed such shameful acts with other men and subsequently received in themselves the moral due penalty for their error. Furthermore, just as they did not think it worthwhile to retain moral knowledge, without conscience nor remorse, they were given over to a depraved mind, so that they could do what ought not to ever be done. Thus they became filled with every kind of wickedness, evil, greed, and bloody depravity. They are full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, and malice. They are shallow gossips, slanderers, truth haters, insolent, arrogant, and boastful garbage. They invent ways of doing evil. Most disobey their parents, and although they always know right from wrong, their lifestyle leaves their sick mind with little moral understanding. Thus no fidelity, no true love for them, and no mercy for us. No matter how limited, although they know the righteous decree of probity, that those who do such sinful things deserve death, they not only continue to do these very things, but also approve of those who practice them,
So they celebrate and encourage them. Paul. So unsurprisingly, at the Last Supper, Yehuda, as soon as he saw Yehoshua reach out for the last roll at his Last Supper, Yehuda pinched it from him. And a look was exchanged that said everything. The next night, he asked all his apostles to join him in the Garden of Gethsemane, exactly as Josephus of Arimathea had told him to do. And he said to them, "Can you not watch 1 hour with me, please?" He showed up at the right time for when these guards were coming. And he told Peter and he told Johanan to pretend along with him that Yehuda was Yehoshua, and it was Yehuda making these claims to be a Messiah. So then began the torment of Yehoshua, because his apostles fell asleep one by one, except Yehuda. And Yehoshua just prayed that it would turn out the way he needed it to turn out, and his soul was insecure about it. He eventually began to sweat beads of blood. That's how terrified he was, drunk on terror. And his hearing was acute. You could hear a pin drop a mile away. So when the 4 soldiers, Roman soldiers, showed up, Yehoshua immediately ran towards Yehuda and kissed him on the cheek. "Why did you kiss me on the cheek, Yehoshua?" "What are you saying, Yehoshua? These men are here to arrest you because you say you're the Messiah." "I don't say I'm the Messiah. It's you who says you're the Messiah." At which juncture, Peter and Johanan jumped in and said, "Kohai, this is Yehoshua, not Yehuda." And after that, they led Yehuda away to be crucified, screaming his innocence as they all do. And exactly as Josephus had planned, they took the crucified body of Yehuda and put a rope around his neck, the other end of the rope to a branch they'd snapped off a tree, and then just threw him over, put the 30 pieces of silver at the foot of the tree, and then spread the rumour when he was found. And meanwhile, the young beautiful boy in his place was put into Josephus' tomb, and it was guarded, Josephus' tomb. And basically, after 3 days had went by, the apostles showed up and said to the Roman guards guarding it, "Listen guys, Yehoshua is not in there anymore. He's been replaced by an angel." So the soldiers said,
What's it coming to go? What's the bing to that a bung? Yehoshua has been replaced by an angel. What am I, a fucking asshole over here or something?
"Listen, we'll roll the stone away just once, and if Yehoshua is still dead in there, instead of an angel in his place, we will just put the rock back, roll it back to where we found it. And here's 20 pieces of silver each."
What's it coming to go? What's it coming to go? Said that the bing, said the bong. Bolognese, the mozzarella. Oh, okay.
And with that, the stone was rolled away, and the young angelic tall boy came to the front of the cave and said, "Yehoshua is in heaven now. I'm an angel sent to pass on the message." Upon witnessing that,
Mozzarella, bolognese, was that the bing, that the bong?
the Romans made their escape from what their tiny minds couldn't comprehend, thanks to Josephus of Arimathea. All was not finished yet. The apostles who knew basically kept it a secret from doubting Thomas. So it left Yehoshua with one final miracle, to appear in front of doubting Thomas from the mists.
What's this? Is that the Messiah?
Hoo-ha!
I thought you were dead.
Well, you thought that little brown jobby was dead. Now, I brought it to life. You saw it with your own eyes.
That's true. So you've survived crucifixion and you're raised from the dead?
Yes, now, go and join the apostles and spread the fucking word.
You betcha. Incidentally, there's a wee brown jobby over there.
Get to fuck, Thomas.
And with that, Yehoshua cut all ties with Canaan. And basically, some say he went as far away as France to continue with his life, but he no longer carried out social experiments. He'd shown enormous strength in doing so and had shaken up the structure of, and basically, so in his place there were other would-be Christ-like characters. However, nobody would be quite like Yehoshua. And his parting shot, the party he once threw, will last the test of time. A party that was 2,000 years ago and we still talk about it to this day. And the simple way that he turned water into wine was quite simple. Being a lumberjack, he had access to marijuana plants, which he broke down into almost powder, took the remains of the vats of wine, poured them into a vat of water so that the dye of the wine would disguise the sprinkling of strong, make you laugh out loud cannabis. And it was cannabis that really helped Yehoshua overcome his child abuse and the subsequent people who preyed on him until he understood he's from above, they're from below.